Hello everyone. First of all, a very happy 74th Independence Day to all. My name is Mayur Chaudhary, and on behalf of entire Rethinking UX community, I would like to take the opportunity to welcome you all and our esteemed speaker, design leader, mentor, our friend, and someone who brought design industry and designers to the front stage, Jai Dutta. We are in the fifth month of the lockdown, and when I reached out to Jeff for this event, we knew there couldn't be a better day than today to talk about navigating the pandemic by design. To keep this event engaging, interactive, and humane, please drop in your questions in the chat window, and we'll be taking them up one by one during interaction with Jay. So without further ado, please welcome Senior Vice President UX Design at Make My Trip, Founder, Curator, Design of Conference, Jai Dutta. Over to you, Jay. The virtual stage is all yours.
Thank you so much, Mayur. Thank you for having me. Mayur and I go back some way. I think Mayur has probably not missed a single design up, and he usually sits in the front row. So great to see you, Mayur, yes, getting this community together. Really appreciate that. And thank you for joining us today. Wherever you are, Visakhapatnam or Stuttgart, it's good to sort of see you here today, this evening. So let me just do getting to know you. I mean, of course, I know some of you, but maybe we'll start by getting to know you a little bit more virtually. I will share my screen, and if something goes wrong, you know, as technology happens. Before I jump into it, so you're probably going to see my screen in a moment. I hope you can see that.
Yeah.
Great. So I'm going to talk about the two pandemics. It's a tale of the two pandemics, and I'm sure you know one very well. You know the other one as well. But maybe I'll reintroduce you to the second pandemic. And I hope we can fight both of them together. So some startup things, which is in case the light goes off or something goes off, my battery restart thing here in the apartment takes a few minutes. I might be in the dark, I might still go on talking, or I might just go on a mute. Thankfully, the Wi-Fi doesn't go off, or so I hope. I might just jinx it by saying that today. So I think, yeah, just wait. I'll be back, hopefully. Second is, please keep asking questions. I have deliberately, it's a challenge. I've said I will do less than 10 slides. Some of you who have seen me present before or have worked with me, probably have never seen me do anything less than 40 slides. So this is probably cutting it down. Less is more. I thought I'll chat with you rather than kind of share one huge deck and talk about journeys and so on and so forth. It's also something very personal. I'm just going to talk about my personal journey in the pandemic, and look forward to hearing yours as well. And there will be more opportunities to share. I'll share that with you shortly as well. So before much further ado, let me just move the slides. I have two screens here, so I might be looking left and right somewhere. So I think if you can put it in the chat window, what best describes you? I just wanted to know how many of you are still studying versus how many of you are new, etc. So that'll be great to know. 1, 2, or 3, please put it in the chat window. So lots of threes I can see. There are a couple of people who are in 1. Okay, that's good. That gives me a sense of who you are, and great. Anyway, I hope I can just tailor some of it, what I'm going to talk about, to suit that. Let me start with the PopQ quiz. I'm not sure Mayur is going to give a prize for that or not, but let's see if he does. I'm going to ask you something. There is one correct answer and the 2 others are wrong. Can you just say 1 or 2 or 3, which is the wrong answer? 2 are right, 1 is wrong. The wrong answers only. Which is the wrong answer? From what I can see, people are pretty much torn between 1 and 2. Some 3s, but majority is 1. Okay, let me just go from 3 to 1. 3, I have actually failed successfully twice in startups. Both have been fantastic experiences, and both of those startups I love dearly. But yeah, it happens. You fail, you learn. If you can take learning, then you learn a lot more. So I think number 3 is true. Number 2, yes, I can write with both my hands, even simultaneously. And when I write on my left with my left, I can go mirror image. So that's also true. Number 1, I have not worked with Mayur. We have known each other. He has been part of the conference. He's been super enthusiastic. Hopefully someday I'll work with him, but not as yet. So yeah, that's probably the one. But let me jump into the things. In this presentation, I think, or this talk that I have, I'm going to talk about maybe 1% design and 99% non-design. I think if you look at your lives, maybe it's not true. It's not the right mix, really. You might have more than 99% kind of, or less than 99% non-design, but to a large. Sometimes when you look at a drop-down to select what area do you work in, you might find design is probably missing. There is carpentry, and there is real estate, and there is whatever kind. There's so many millions of jobs that you see there, and you just realize that art and design might be one, which is there. Design in technology is never there. We are like a sub-specialization within what seems like a specialization. So in spirit of that larger kind of broader thing, I thought I'll talk about something fairly broader, but I'll take questions which are much more specific, much more focused per se. Okay, so yeah, that's probably what I said. Some takeaways, plenty of questions, let it come, some reflections. You may or may not agree with me. That's perfectly good, but that's probably the start of a conversation really for us. Okay, let me just stop sharing.
Yeah, Jay, it's stopped.
Okay. Great, sure. So fine, I think I said what I'm going to talk about, which is the 2 pandemics. One which is very visible, and one which is all making us all panic and wondering what's going to happen, what will happen to our jobs, what will happen to our careers, what will happen to our near and dear ones. I think lives first, careers next. It has a start date, but there is no end date. I think we can all roughly remember the date it came in. We can definitely remember the lockdown date, and you probably remember what you were doing on a certain date through the lockdown, or who you were not with, or what you were missing eating, or missing doing, or missing going out with. I think these are things which are kind of going to be deeply ingrained in your memories for a very long time. The second pandemic is very different. It has a bunch of start dates, but we don't exactly know when. It's kind of come together, and I think it's become a pandemic. It exists, we don't know it. It's around us. We actually probably enjoy it, and there is no vaccine, there is no de-addiction center, there is nothing pretty much. And we don't even probably want it to end. So that might be the other part of it. So I'm going to talk about these 2 pandemics which are in our lives and in our lifetimes, because we always talk about this being like a once in a lifetime. I think the second pandemic is once in maybe the human history, probably. So let's talk about that. As I said, little design, but there will be some design that I'll be talking about. If you came thinking about the three ways of doing certain things, hacks or tricks or shortcuts, or this isn't the one, if that's what you were expecting. But as I said, please feel free to ask me those questions. There are no bad questions, there are just questions. So, and of course, this is like a 9-slide deck kind of thing. So let's rewind. As I said, you would remember where you were when the lockdown happened, when it was announced on television. You might remember doing what's next. You might remember what you were doing in April at the height of the sort of lockdown and frustration and all of that. I was in the middle of doing almost 18 to 20 hour work days. We were working pretty much flat out. As an organization, we were volunteering with the government of India, with the Niti Aayog and the PMO to help get Arogya Setu. Arogya Setu was already out on the 3rd of April, or 2nd of April, if I'm not mistaken. And we have been like clocking up more and more and more downloads as we went ahead. I mean, it was becoming crazy. We, of course, had questions. Privacy, what will the government use data for? We actually fought through it. The fact is that we were not the only set of people. There were a whole bunch of volunteers who were there to maintain checks and balances and also hold the organizations behind this, or who would eventually implement it, accountable. So it was an interesting story. In the middle of it all, of course, fights and arguments broke out on social media. There were people throwing things around. I didn't have much time to respond. I would go back and respond. It was a crazy time because we were already kind of trying to use whatever little time we got to sleep and do some office work as well, rather than fighting it out on social media. When that kind of subsided and we actually gave the work back to the government, I think once it kind of reached a certain mass, we handed over the entire project to the government. But anyway, around May, I think I started back to tweeting and kind of going back on those old arguments and getting back to it and all of that. And very interestingly, I noticed some of my tweets were getting a lot of attention. I think maybe fights are good for TRPs. So I think the more controversy, the better it is. So I put out a tweet sometime in May, which got some 200 and whatever likes close to. And I was like looking at my numbers, number of followers. They were going at around almost closing in on 10,000 followers. And I was looking forward to that. Wow, 10,000 followers. And I missed the mark by a few to get to the 300. Next few days, I kept tweeting. And through the breakfast, through talking to my son, through going out for the morning walk, I would just keep thinking about, okay, what am I going to talk about, which will get me 500 likes, which will get me 350 likes, 475 likes maybe, kind of. I hit it again. The next time it was 300 plus likes, and this was like super awesome. I loved it. You know, I'm sure any one of us would, kind of thing, right? And I'm getting closer to, like, I'm well past the 9,500 mark, and I'm getting closer and closer. And of course, the arguments are going on, the sort of the joy of seeing so many likes and retweets and comments. That's also wonderful, all of that. And just then it dawned on me. It just stopped me in its tracks that, you know, I had become a slave to all of that. I was actually kind of, my waking hours, talking to people who were near and dear to me. I was just thinking, can I use this conversation as a tweet? Can I actually reduce this thinking in 280 words? Will these people like this on Instagram more, or on Facebook more, or on Twitter more? I think it was a very interesting thing, but I was grappling with that. I was spending close to 2 hours per day on social media, not of course in one big chunk, but 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 3 minutes. Very quickly, having coffee, coffee was great. I probably did not notice it. I just drank it. I was just on Twitter, kind of thing, right? Or on Instagram and all of that. And that's when I realized the second pandemic that we are in the middle of, the distraction pandemic. You and I, we are in the middle of the huge distraction pandemic. Maybe some of you are tweeting or sharing on Instagram or sharing on Facebook, or not sharing anything, but purely consuming. Maybe you're taking a screenshot, sending it to your friends, sending it to your family, sending it to your school groups, and saying, look at that guy, look at that politician, look at this guy, look at the startup founder. I think it becomes, whether you engage fully or not, whether you're consuming or creating and consuming, the pandemic's got you, and you don't even know that it's got you. You end up spending hours of your attention. So going back, today being the Independence Day, I thought this is probably a good theme to touch upon, about freedom, really, kind of thing. And when we say Happy Independence Day, do we mean that we should have a great sense of freedom and a great sense of being able to stretch your stuff and your hands and your mind, really? So coming back, I thought I'm pretty much giving away my attention for cheap. So office is paying me X amount of money per hour, maybe on an hourly basis, assuming a 40-hour week. If you're a freelancer, you might be sort of charging X amount of hours, money for X amount of hours, which is again an hourly thing. And here I am giving away my attention, my time for absolutely free. In the bargain, I might be pushed products, I might be pushed ads, which I might invariably end up buying. And so I'm actually spending time. I might actually be spending money on these things. And why am I throwing away my attention for cheap? So I thought, let me disconnect. And on 1st of June, I disconnected from Twitter. In the entire month of June, I went twice to Twitter. In the entire month of July, I went about 3 times to Twitter. In the entire month of August, today I visited Twitter twice. So on 15, because I thought, let me just go and see if there's any question, anything at all on rethinking UX, and let me answer that. Once in a while I tweet, but I've consciously tried not to think my life in terms of tweets or Instagram stories or some other stories or some other thing. This is probably something that I wanted to come back out of. So what I've done, I've actually used Zapier and connected a Google Sheet to Twitter, maybe once in a week or once in 3 weeks or 2 weeks. Whenever I feel like saying something, I put it out on the Google Sheet, and that pretty much becomes my tweet. I may not go there because I don't want to be a prisoner to the number of likes, number of followers. My followers have fallen. I think it's well under 9,000 now, and it's okay. I come to Instagram once in Instagram very, very rarely. Again, I've connected, I've automated a whole bunch of things because I also look after the designer handle. So I need to do a few of those posts as well. Again, very automated, that pretty much puts it up on Twitter and Instagram. My average time on social media, discounting WhatsApp, because WhatsApp is also a lot of work, is around 8 minutes a week. So imagine how much it has fallen, kind of. So a friend of mine asked me, so what are you doing with your time? Aren't you missing out? Don't you have FOMO? So what happens is a lot of my friends might have seen something interesting or funny or thought this was very good and must share with me. Friends, colleagues, co-workers, all of that will share something or the other. So in a way, I get a curated, distilled news of what's happening, the most interesting bits seen from the eyes of people I myself find very interesting, so or great friends as such. Of course, it can be an echo chamber, but then each of the social media is also an echo chamber, right? So anyway, coming back to FOMO, what have I done with my time? I solve a couple of puzzles, Sudoku puzzles every day. I think I've become so good at it that I can almost predict numbers in squares. And it works about 30% of the time for sure. When 70% of the time it doesn't work actually. So I haven't done very well, have I? But I've replaced the joy of missing out instead of the fear of missing out. I think there is joy in reading. When I talk to people, they have my attention. When I call friends, they have my attention. When I talk to my son, he has my attention. I am not thinking of what I'm going to post. Whether this thing, which my wife said a clever quip, am I going to put that in a tweet or not? I don't think about that. When we are talking to each other. So then the question you might say is, why are you telling me all of this? Why this long, nonsensical stuff? Well, there are de-addiction center for drugs, and there may be vaccines very soon. Russia claims to have one. Fingers crossed for COVID-19 as well. There are none for this distraction pandemic. The reason why I'm telling you this is that many of you may be few years, 5 years, 10, 15, 20 years younger to me. There are some of you who are students who are just graduating. By the time I came across this very deeply intoxicating, deeply addictive social media thing, I was much later in my career. I've lived most of my life without that, or career through without that, right? The thing is that you've got a long career ahead of you. Some of you have, those of you graduating soon may have 30 years ahead of you, and we don't even know when, by the time 20 years from now, when we will retire, or maybe it'll become 40 years of career, will we have enough savings? How will that whole thing work? So, but just assume that some of you who have just got 3, 4, 5, 7 years of work experience, you have a very, very long career ahead of you. I have had 25 years plus of experience, and I think there is still much more to go. And I don't even know when we will retire, or what do we call retirement. Do designers ever retire, or do they just fade away like printed ink? So I don't know. I don't know any of those kind of, right? I've gone through a lot of reinvention. That's been my career. I think every few years I have gone through reinvention. Yuval Noah Harari, again, I'm sure you've heard of him, and I'm pretty sure that you've got one of his books, either Sapiens or the later ones with you. So Yuval Noah Harari talks about the fact that every decade we must reinvent ourselves going forward. I think it has happened to me even previously, and I think the pace will only become faster and faster. The pandemic today will get you to learn new tricks. You will move from the current set of tricks and tips and skills to a whole bunch of new things. Like it's forcing many of us to go on video, talk to you. Imagine you're sitting next to me, I'm talking to you, and I am actually talking to you, but actually you're not there. I'm staring at you through the camera, and I'm hoping to reach you out there from that, right? So I think it'll teach us new tricks. Talking about Yuval Noah Harari, I'm sure you know this interesting fact that Yuval spends about 2 hours of a day meditating. 2 hours is probably the longest time after sleeping, if there's a big bulk of time that you look at. He's done this for 17 years. For 17 years, he has gone on this meditation retreat, the Vipassana retreat, where he spends 60 days, which is 2 months. 2 out of 12 months he spends there. No Facebook, no Twitter, no Instagram, no telling you what I ate today and what cat I saw or what happened today, this morning, this afternoon, this evening. Late night, nothing. He just completely goes off. It's silence, right? And again, why am I telling this to you? Because you've got a long career ahead of you. And because the attention is very, very, very important. We're giving it away for free. We're giving it away for cheap. I think we all want growth. We all want fast. We all want to move up the career ladder. We want to do like things instant. There is no instant. As someone famous said, it took me 17 years for an overnight success. Sometimes it takes 20 years. The other day, my son and his school friends were looking at an audio of Bhimsen Joshi, the legendary singer. Now, they want to do something for the school project, which is like great and awesome and, like has a classical angle to it and maybe a jazz and a fusion. I was just reminding them that how much time and effort it takes to be a Bhimsen Joshi. And not everyone can be that. For every Joshi ji, I think there are probably 1,000 plus people who didn't get there, or a few hundred who got somewhere close. So I think it's a matter of a lot of hard work, a matter of putting in a lot of extra hours. That's probably where I'm kind of coming back to. So the true value that you will provide to your employers, to your people who give you projects, really is how do I connect business outcomes with what really the users want? How do I connect those disparate dots which a product manager or a tech guy cannot see? You have to have those insights. You need to sort of figure those out. You need to help other people succeed. It's your decisions, your choices which matter. And you cannot do decisions, you cannot make great choices in a distracted frame of mind. So I'm getting it back to this epidemic, the epidemic of distraction, or the pandemic of distraction, kind of, right? So that's where I think, that's how I remembered again Yuval Noah Harari. He has millions of followers today. He is probably, every tweet kind of goes to thousands of people. Bill Gates wants to see him, he wants to talk to him. Presidents, business leaders, everyone wants to sort of meet him. Everyone wants to know about him. But what does he do out of 2 months out of 10? Does nothing. He just journeys inwards. So Yuval has this wonderful thing to say. He says that if I had not spent the time deep diving and understanding myself, I would have just been a professor of history at Israel, teaching about medieval history and teaching about Israel and the world and connecting dots, marking papers, checking everything. But those 2 months where I spent going deeper inside, doing almost nothing, that has helped me connect cyborgs to Neanderthals, which is no mean feat by any sort of imagination, right? So distraction epidemic is absolutely real. Let it not sweep you off your feet. Don't let it lure you into believing false metrics like numbers of likes and follows. A Yuval Noah Harari or a Bill Gates or any of the business leaders like a Jeff Bezos, They were there first, not their million followers came later. They were actually solving questions worth $1 billion or problems worth $1 billion. They did not set out to get billion followers or a million followers or make $1 billion. It just happened. Sometimes what you are not looking for, the byproduct is very, very important. So again, the saying that, beauty is a byproduct. You were not there just for the beauty part of it. You were there to solve some user problems. Beauty happened. You did not set out to build the Taj Mahal. Interestingly, incidentally, the residents of Taj no longer can enjoy it. So that was not the idea really, right? So again, there's real work to be done, guys. You cannot get paid in likes or follows. You don't pay a local grocery shop in likes or follows. Some people become influencers, but remember the chances of solving a $1,000 problem or a 10,000 rupee problem or a 50,000 rupee problem is much more likely than all the stars and all the charms aligning to make you an influencer. I mean, you can surely go that, but pulling you down was also equally good. But in this, you build upon what you do. So just to leave you with this thought, there are blogs to be written, there are enough case studies, there's great work to be done out of India. People are looking east to see some unique case studies, some unique stories of how we did and how we're solving, stories of impact. You will be doing that. I think figure out the substance part of it. The rest will follow. There's a lot of work to be done. Don't get swept by the attention disorders. Don't get swept by the distraction pandemic and survive the rest of the pandemic. Remember, both pandemics are actually detrimental to your career. Actually, COVID may be a much lesser, it might be a short-term problem, but your attention problem is a much long-term problem. So treat it with a larger view of history. Thank you.